The NFL schedule drops this week, so I'm sharing my Buffalo Bills wish list with you right now.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Bills Mafia? It's Joe Marino. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets. If your first bet wins, visit FanDuel.com to get started. On today's episode, we are breaking down my wish list for the Buffalo Bills 2026 schedule. And on Thursday, May 14th, the schedule will come out, and there is expected to be teasers throughout the week. So we might get a Bills game or two announced before then, but we get the full thing on Thursday. And look, I know Joe Brady's coming in with the slogan, put the ball down, right? And I like the slogan. And I'm sure when you think about a schedule, maybe you consider, does it matter? Anytime, anywhere, I get it, right? Of course, the Bills are going to play any team, anywhere, at any time. And to my knowledge, there has never been an NFL game where a team chose to not show up and play. But these conversations are worthwhile because I want the Bills to have the most advantageous path possible to be the highest playoff seed possible, to have the most favorable path to the Super Bowl as possible. So beyond the obvious, don't want any rest disadvantages, I want to get into the things I hope are true for the Bills in the 2026 schedule to give them the optimal path towards a high seed and a Super Bowl appearance. So let's start by acknowledging the opponents. That's the part we know. We know exactly which teams the Bills are playing. We don't know when and where. We do know where, but we don't know when and in what order. But let's talk about the opponents that are on the Bills' schedule. So the Bills will play their divisional opponents home and away. Jets, Dolphins, Patriots, you play them at home, you play them away. Then the Bills and every team will play a division within their conference on a rotating 3-year schedule. So all of the AFC East teams play all of the AFC West teams. So the Bills and our AFC rivals will play the Broncos, Chargers, Chiefs, and Raiders. So you've got your 6 divisional games. You have those 4 divisional games or 4 games against another division within your conference. And then there's 2 more divisions in your conference, and you play the same place finisher of the prior season. So the Bills finished second in the AFC East. They're already playing their own division. They're already playing the AFC West. So the Bills will play the same place finisher from 2025 in the AFC North and the AFC South. So welcome to the schedule, Ravens and Texans, as teams that both finished second in their respective divisions. Then all of your teams in your division play all 4 teams from an NFC conference on a rotating 4-year cycle. So this year, the AFC East plays the NFC North. So welcome to the Bills schedule, the Bears, Packers, Vikings, and Lions. And then you play one more inter-conference game based on last year's standings on a rotating cycle. So the Bills finished second in the AFC East, and it's the AFC East turn to play the same place finisher in the NFC West. So welcome to the schedule, the Los Angeles Rams. So this year, the AFC teams have 8 home games and 9 away. That changes every year. Last year, the Bills had 9 home games and 8 away. So the Bills' 8 home games are their divisional opponents, the Jets, Dolphins, and Patriots, in addition to the Chiefs, Chargers, Bears, Lions, and Ravens. The Bills' 9 away games, of course, the AFC East, Jets, Patriots, and Dolphins. And then they go to the Denver Broncos, the Green Bay Packers, the Las Vegas Raiders, the Minnesota Vikings, the Houston Texans, and the Los Angeles Rams. According to 2025 combined win percentage, so all of the opponents in their 2025 win percentage, the Bills have the 8th hardest schedule in the NFL. When considering projected 2026 wins, according to Warren Sharp, the Bills have the 19th hardest schedule in the NFL. Now let's talk about the opener. And I think you always want to open at home. But I will say, I always like the idea of getting a West Coast trip out of the way in week 1. You obviously have the most rest you could possibly have. It's week 1. I don't mind going out west for a longer trip. And so those candidates would be Denver, Vegas, the Rams, and the Texans. If it were to be one of those, I want it to be the Vegas Raiders. I don't expect much from Vegas this year, and the Bills obviously have a ton of turnover on their defense, and I think a tune-up game against a underwhelming Raiders roster on the road. You knock out a West Coast trip, you face a team that feels like a good tune-up game for when it counts, and help your defense get some reps, some game reps together. So that would be my ideal opener, is on the road in Vegas. Because ultimately this year, like I said, the AFC and the Bills only have 8 home games and 9 road games. And so opening at home is always fun, but I'm not sure if it's the best thing for the Bills. If you open at home, that means you have 7 home games left in the regular season after week 1 with 9 on the road. It skews too hard to me for the road slate. Now, I'm also not sure it's crazy to think that the Bills could wait until week 3 for their home opener. New stadium, maybe they want to give the Bills optimal time to make sure everything's ready to go for the first regular season game. So obviously it could be weeks 1, 2, or 3, right? It could fall the home opener, the first game at the new stadium. It could fall weeks 1, 2, or 3. But I am not going to be surprised if it's week 3. My guess as to the team the Bills will play the first game at the new Highmark Stadium against, I think it's New England. I think it's going to be a 4:25 Eastern time kickoff on Sunday afternoon against the New England Patriots. That's my expectation. If that's week 1, 2, or 3, I don't know. But my guess, I don't have any sources, right? I'm literally just telling you my gut idea. I think it's New England. I think it'll be a divisional game. They opened and closed Highmark, the previous stadium, with the Jets. Maybe it's Miami. I could see Miami, but New England, it feels like that's where the recent history really has been. I think it'll be a big draw, obviously. So that's my guess, is that the Bills open against New England, probably in weeks 2 or 3 at home. All right, so that's what you need to know about the opponents and the opener. We have so much more to cover. I want to talk about teams I want the Bills to play early, teams I want the Bills to avoid early. We'll get into weather games, when the ideal bye week is, so much more to consider. So folks, be sure to stick with me. If you've ever opened your bank account and thought, where did all my money go? You're not alone. Keeping track of subscriptions, spending, and bills can get overwhelming fast. That's where Rocket Money comes in, helping you take control of your finances all in one place. It automatically categorizes your spending so you can actually see where your money's going, and you can set budgets, get alerts, and stay on top of upcoming bills. Just makes everything feel more organized and gives you a clearer picture of your finances day to day. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower bills so you can actually grow your savings. So let Rocket Money help you reach your financial goals faster. Join at rocketmoney.com/lockedon. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Workplace chaos, deadlines are stacking up, the inbox is overflowing, and the one position you have to fill is still sitting open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, this is a job for sponsored jobs. Indeed, sponsored jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for: skills, experience, and location. So you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's a stat that says it all. In the minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed. sponsored jobs, and listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire. This is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. All right, let's start getting ready for this schedule even more that drops on Thursday. I'm excited. I love this. I love seeing the path the Bills are going to take, and of course, starting to really plan out my fall. Maybe there's some games I want to go to. Certainly plan to be at that home opener. But, maybe some others along the way. Get an idea for what those late nights are going to be for myself, covering these primetime games. So I am excited for Thursday. All right, 3 teams I'd like the Bills to play early in the season. 3 teams I want the Bills to play early. The Chiefs, the Ravens, and the Lions. Let me tell you why. Well, the Chiefs, this Patrick Mahomes guy is coming off of an ACL. Who knows when and how he'll look coming off of it, right? So when does he return and how well does he play? Obviously, they're a different team with Patrick Mahomes. Now, I think the NFL will be aware of what I'm saying and probably push that game to later part of the year. But, yeah, if you can get the Chiefs early and get Mahomes coming off the injury, that's ideal. I want to play the Ravens early. New coaching staff, new interior offensive line. I think they have a very unique offensive recipe with Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry and some speed at receiver. I feel like there's probably some sorting out that they need to do with their offense to optimize it and get some reps together. And so I'm sure they'll hit their stride. I don't know if it happens early. So I'd love to play the Ravens early on. And then the Lions. The Lions are obviously coming off of a down year, but they do have a new offensive coordinator. They have 2 new offensive line starters, plus Penei Sewell is going from right tackle to left tackle. They have a new backfield situation to go with Jahmyr Gibbs. There's enough new there, especially on offense with some transition, that I think they'd be a good team to catch early on. So 3 teams I'd like to get within the first, 4, 5, 6 weeks: Chiefs, Ravens, and Lions. 3 teams I don't want the Bills to play early: the Broncos, the Rams, and the Dolphins. The Denver Broncos, the reigning number 1 seed in the AFC, they're basically running back the exact same team, plus they've added Jalen Waddle. I think they are positioned well to play good football right out of the gate. Now, look, Bo Nix is coming off of the ankle injury, but he's supposed to be throwing in June, and I don't think there's any concern about his availability for camp and early in the season. So a team that's running it back with a major upgrade at receiver, yeah, we can wait on that. The Rams, another team that's running it back, maybe the best team outside of the Seahawks last year in the NFL. And they're running it back with major upgrades at corner with Trent McDuffie coming in, Jalen Watson. Like, that was the only part of their team that I looked at and thought, I just don't think they have the horses at corner. Well, they've got the horses at corner now. So go ahead and avoid them early on because they're primed to play good ball out of the gate. And then I said Miami, and really, I mean Miami on the road. Obviously, everything's new there. They have a quarterback in Malik Willis that, is very dynamic in terms of his ability to run the football, has a big arm, a unique quarterback. You're not exactly sure what that offense is going to look like. You'd like to get a little tape on him. But really, the number one thing is it's not about any player that the Dolphins do or don't have or a new coaching staff. It's just, I don't want to go on the road to Miami early in the season and play in the hot sun down there and, tax these guys early in the season with, the strains of playing in that type of heat and getting dehydrated and having to, get their energy and strength back. Feels like that'd be a good one to avoid early on in the season. So 3 teams I don't want early: the Broncos, the Rams, or Miami on the road. So I mentioned Miami as a team I don't want to play early on the road because of the potential weather elements. So let's talk about the possibilities of weather. affecting the Bills' schedule, which, of course, you start with the Bills' late season home games. And there are a couple of South teams coming north, the Dolphins and Chargers. So you'd love for those teams to come up north, later in the season when they have to play in some elements that they're probably not super comfortable in. And as you see the NFL open tons of new stadiums, they're going inside. Cleveland's going inside. Chicago's going inside. Kansas City going inside. It's crazy to me that you would spoil what makes your home stadium super hard to play in. It's those elements, and you're going to make it comfy on those teams coming in. Have you lost your mind? I'm so happy that this is an open-air stadium in Buffalo. Let's invite those boys from Southern California and Southern Florida to come on up and play in late November and December and see how they like playing in the cold. So we'd love to get Miami and LA Chargers at home late in the season. Now, the Bills' road schedule in terms of what they have to deal with, there's 9 road games. 4 of them are in climate-controlled stadiums. The Raiders in Vegas, the Minnesota Vikings, Houston Texans, and LA Rams. And your only potential for a heat game is at Miami. And your other road outdoor games are in New England, in New Jersey to face the Jets, Denver, and Green Bay. Those are your road outdoor games. So those 4 road outdoor games at Miami, which is potentially a heat game, and then your covered venues against the Raiders, Vikings, Texans, and Rams. Miami is your only severe heat threat on this schedule. So ideally that comes later in the season so that you don't have to go and bake in the sun. Let's talk about the bye week. And as I've said for years in this podcast and something you might be aware of, there is a helpful element to your bye week coming later in the season. Ideally, your bye week comes after week 10. And there is strong data that supports Super Bowl winners and them having later season bye weeks or later season rest. It does matter a ton. So your Seahawks last year, reigning Super Bowl champions, they had their bye week in week 8, but they also had a Thursday night football game in week 16 and that extended mini bye into week 17, plus the first round bye for the playoffs. The Eagles won the Super Bowl in 2024. They had a week 5 bye, but they had a week 11 Thursday night football into the mini bye in week 12. The 2023 Chiefs, week 10 bye. 2022 Chiefs, week 8. 2021 Rams, week 11. 2020 Bucks, week 13. 2019 Chiefs, week 12. 2018 Patriots, week 11. 2017 Eagles, week 10. 2016 New England Patriots, week 9. We do not want this schedule to drop on Thursday and see a bye week in week 5 or 6 or 7. You want that thing week 10 or later. You want to see maybe some Thursday night football late in the season so you get those extended rests. You want late season rest. It matters. So I'm hopeful to see that come together well for the Bills, especially if the Bills have an early bye. I'm hoping for the 1 seed so you get that bye week in the wild card round. I'd like for the Bills to stop playing in the wild card round. That would be fun, and the inevitable injuries that come from that. But you want that late season rest. It definitely matters. All right, coming up next, the Bills are going to be playing on primetime. I want to predict the primetime games. I've done very well predicting the Bills' primetime games. I correctly predicted 4 out of 5 last year and 5 out of 6 in 2024. So I have my predictions for that. We'll talk holidays, international, quarterback matchups. We'll do it all next, folks. Be sure to stick with me. The NBA playoffs are here and every possession matters. If you're looking to get even closer to the action, FanDuel has a great offer to get you started. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. That's right, turn $5 into $150 in bonus bets just for getting started. I like using FanDuel during the playoffs because everything I need is right there in one place. You can check stats, trends, and matchups before making your picks, which makes the whole experience feel a lot more informed. And whether you're looking at player props or just following your favorite stars, and adds another level of excitement to every game. It's a really easy app to navigate, and it makes playoff basketball even more engaging from start to finish. Don't forget, of course, the NHL playoffs are going on. Fun to get in on the props or, over under on goalie saves. If you think someone's going to score a goal, I'm going to stop betting for a Tage Thompson anytime goal. I don't think it's going to happen. The guy does not look good right now, so we're going to avoid that. Major League Baseball, of course, is in full swing. So head to FanDuel.com to get started. FanDuel, play your game. All right, welcome back, folks. Let's continue diving into the possibilities of this 2026 schedule. Next up is primetime targets. 6 is the maximum amount of primetime games that you can be scheduled for. Now, you can have more with the flex scheduling, but keep in mind that the only games that count as primetime games are Thursday Night Football, Sunday Night Football, and Monday Night Football. That's it. So your Thanksgiving afternoon games, the Black Friday game, the Christmas Day games outside of the night slate, like standalone international games, those do not count towards primetime. It's literally just Thursday Night Football, just Sunday Night Football, just Monday Night Football. And as Mike North, who is, I call him the vice president of making the schedule. I don't know what his actual title is. The guy makes the schedule. And he does an amazing interview every year with Sal Capaccio and Matt Beauvais on their podcast. It's always Game Day in Buffalo. I strongly encourage you listening to it. It was in April. It's such a good conversation every year, and I learned so much. And you get a great opportunity to just kind of get inside the mind of the NFL as they make the schedule and what's important to them. And he always says, while everyone obsesses over primetime games, the number one viewing window for NFL football is Sunday at 4:25. That is when the most eyeballs are on football games, the Sunday 4:25 game. So keep that in mind. That's why the Bills and Chiefs, they never play a primetime game. They play Sunday at 4:25. And so always keep that in mind. All right, here are my predictions for the Bills primetime games in 2026. I have 6 predictions for you because they can be scheduled for 6 primetime games. I think your home primetime games are against the Bears, Chargers, and Lions. I mean, the Bears, Caleb Williams, really dynamic young quarterback. Ben Johnson's got that team as one of the more exciting teams in the league. I think Bears, Bills just screams excitement based on where those two teams are headed. I think the NFL is going to want that in a showcase. The Chargers, I think obviously they've been a playoff team. There's Harbaugh. The Bills don't play the Chargers a ton. And them coming to Buffalo, it could be a very appealing draw. Obviously the Chargers are in LA, but not like a huge fan base. I think that would help elevate them a little bit, bringing them to Buffalo and getting some shine on the Chargers. The Chargers would be invited to a Bills game to be placed on primetime. Then the Lions, I mean, how dynamic was the last 2 games, right? The Thanksgiving game where Josh Allen hit Diggs over the middle of the field, sets up the game winner from Tyler Bass on Thanksgiving. And then, of course, that was the Bills scored 50-something points a couple of years ago in Detroit. I feel like the Bills the league's going to want that one to have some shine on it. So home primetime games, I'm predicting the Bears, Chargers, and Lions. Away, I am predicting Green Bay. When you listen to Mike North on that podcast with Sal and Matt, he was giddy about Buffalo playing in Green Bay and how it's not a common game that happens, and they felt like they really wanted to put some shine on that. So I think it'll happen. I think the road game in New England will be a primetime game. Obviously, the Bills won the division 5 years in a row. The Patriots took it last year. I think they're going to want that one to be, in a prime slot. And so that's my prediction. I think the Bills open at home. They open the new Highmark with New England, and then they play a primetime game in New England for the second matchup. And then the Rams, another electric game a few years ago. Stafford friggin' diced up the Bills, but Josh Allen went blow for blow. Unfortunately, the Bills had a punt block for a touchdown winds up being the difference in the game. I think that one is going to a perceived Super Bowl preview, right? I think a lot of people might think that it might be Bills Rams this year. And so that one will want to have some shine on it, I'm sure. Maybe you're thinking about Denver and Houston as primetime games. I don't disagree with you. They feel a lot more like the 425 kicks to me, where going back to that comment I made about how that is always the number one viewing segment is that 425 slate. I think those scream CBS 425, Tony Romo, Bills Texans, Bills Broncos in that slot. All right, there's always the threat of the Bills playing on holidays. I call it a threat because it's what it is to me. Maybe you love the idea of the Bills being part of your Christmas or your Thanksgiving. I do not. I don't want that at all. I love the Bills. I love not dealing with the Bills on holidays even more. Those are work days for me. That is pulling me away from my family. I want to spend time with my family, and I'll have hours of post-game work to do. I'd like to not have my holidays complicated with that. So if that can be my annual hope, I don't have a hard time saying it to you. If you like them on holidays, then I'll be happy for you, but it does not suit me well. So Black Friday, that's obviously on the table. Christmas, there's 3 games on Christmas this year. 1 o'clock, 4:30, and 8:20. You got to feel like the Bills are absolutely a threat to play in any one of those slots. And then in Thanksgiving, the Bills do not play in Detroit or Dallas, so they're clear for the first 2 slots, but they could play the Thanksgiving night game. And I think about Green Bay, right? The way Mike North was talking about that. Bills, Packers, Thanksgiving night. I could see Bills, Packers on Christmas. I could see Bills, Packers on Black Friday. I am bracing myself. And look, Black Friday, every year I go with my family to the mountains and we cut down a tree on Black Friday. I don't want to have to reschedule that because they want to slam a Bills game there when they could just play it on Sunday. So there's my old man yelling at the clouds. I don't want the Bills to play on holidays ever. International games, the Bills should not be playing an international game this year. There are 9, and that number just continues to go up. I never love having to play internationally. It's inevitable. I thought the Bills would play an international game last year. They won't be doing it this year, so I think you can count on it happening in 2027, especially when the Bills have 9 home games, 8 away games. You can, I think with it skewed towards the home schedule, it's more digestible to go on the road for an international game when it sets up that way. But 9 opponents, or the 9 host teams, have already been announced, and the Bills do not play any of those teams at their stadium. So we already know that the Rams and 49ers are playing in Australia on Thursday, September 10th. We know that Dallas is playing Baltimore in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil on September 27th. The Saints are hosting a game in Paris. The Lions are hosting a game in Munich. The Falcons are hosting a game in Madrid. The 49ers are hosting a game in Mexico City. The Jaguars are hosting a game in London, 2 games in London. And the Commanders are also hosting a game in London. The Bills do not play any of those teams on the road. They are marked safe from international play this year. And the last thing I'll mention is the quarterback matchups, which I will absolutely talk more about later this week. I plan on doing a full episode on quarterback matchups, as well as the biggest challenge that each team represents here in the coming days as we get ready for Thursday. And then once we get the schedule on Thursday, I'll drop a show right after I have a chance to break it all down. If you're an everydayer, you know all about the way that I get into the actual release schedule. We get into the nitty-gritty, like I think 30 different data points that we break it down from. So that's coming, of course, Thursday evening. But just kind of glancing through things, the big-time quarterback matchups, the Bills get Patrick Mahomes this year. They get Justin Herbert. Maybe you don't think he's a big-time quarterback. I don't know. He's super dynamic. I know he can be, he's been disappointing in the playoffs, but that guy also is capable of lighting you up for 400 yards, and he's got a very dynamic skill set. Caleb Williams, I mean, how do you not? I'm not a big Caleb Williams truther. I think he's a flawed player, but you cannot deny the dynamic moments, the late game heroics. They were huge last year for Caleb Williams. The Bills get him, Jared Goff, who I respect highly as one of the best quarterbacks in the league, Lamar Jackson, Drake May. We'll see how things go for him. Obviously, at number 2 in the MVP voting. The wheels fell off in the playoffs. What does he look like this year? Jordan Love, who I think is awesome, and reigning NFL MVP, Matthew Stafford. So the Bills they face some MVPs here in Stafford, Jackson, Mahomes. Drake May was, high in the race. So some good quarterback matchups this year. And the Bills don't really get, a ton of softies this year when it comes to quarterback. Like the Raiders, maybe they get Mendoza, but division games against the Jets and Dolphins don't feel like those are super intimidating, but it's a pretty good slate of quarterbacks that the Bills face this year. And so I look forward to really diving into that with you later in the week. Like I said, we'll talk about the biggest challenges for every team. We'll get the schedule on Thursday. We got squad this week. So many good conversations. So don't miss anything. Make sure you're subscribed. I'd love it if you took a second to rate, review, and share the podcast. Have a great rest of your day. Go Bills. And I look forward to catching up with you again real soon.